Hey, Lock and Crawl here. I have something a little different for you guys today. I wanted to share an experience that I had up on the Mogollon Rim back on November 10th of 2019. So I know this could be a little bit of a urban legend, but for me, not to say that I didn't believe in Bigfoot or UFOs or aliens or any of that sort. I believe we're not alone. I believe that there's definitely stuff that's out there. It's always been here. It's not coming from some other planet. I just believe that there's entities, and we're definitely not alone. Over the years, just from experiences, I'm definitely convinced that we're not alone. But wanted to share my experience because, as you all may know, we really do enjoy exploring, adventuring. We get out to some areas that are pretty remote, and I don't know. I feel connected with the woods. I love being out there. While I'm out there, I'm very respectful, very appreciative, and I feel that I spread that energy while I'm there. Well, back to November of 2019. So a friend of mine reached out to me and said he wanted to go camping, and he wanted to camp in an area that was near a lake, so we'd get some fishing in. And when he mentioned that, at the time I had my Jeep Wrangler, and I also had a small trailer with a rooftop tent. And so I was ready to go. I said, yeah, let's do it. He didn't have a whole lot of time. He only wanted to stay one night, so we didn't want to go very far. I started doing some research. It was, I don't know, a couple of weeks before the actual day or that weekend. And in my research, I was pulling up the Payson area. Payson area from us here, we're in the East Valley here in Arizona. East Valley, when I say east of Phoenix. The Payson area is about an hour and a half from here, not very far. And beautiful pine forest, thousands of acres, and some very cool areas where you could disperse camp. And beautiful lakes. There's quite a few lakes that are up there on the rim. From Payson up to the rim, it's probably another 45 minutes. Woods Canyon Lake is one of my favorite lakes. Knowles Lake is up there. Bear Canyon Lake is up there. So I started kind of looking into it, try to find an area. And one of my research, aside from Google Maps and taking a look at the areas to try to figure out which lake would be ideal, I did pull up some YouTube videos and just kind of searched the area, just Googled or searched YouTube for camping and fishing around some of these lakes. Well, I came across a video that was near campsite near Knowles Lake. And it was this man with his dog. He was out there. He had a toy hauler. He had a quad. He was out there camping near Knowles Lake, again, by himself, just him and his dog, which I thought was kind of cool. I mean, I figured I'd just watch this video to get a feel for the surrounding and how far he was from the lake, and just get a feel for him fishing or whatnot, right? So as I'm watching this video, he started showing some strange stuff that was going on around his camp. And it started with, which sounded like gorillas. It was a strange sound. And at this time, I didn't know a whole lot about Bigfoot. I mean, I knew of him and, people and sightings and people's stories, but not to the point where I was a believer, at least not until after my experience. So as I'm watching this video, he there was still daylight, and it wasn't just one. The sounds were coming all throughout his camp area. It almost sounded as if he was surrounded by whatever this was, but it had a very distinctive sound, which did in fact sound like gorillas. And again, this is in the Mogollon Rim near Nose Lake, and it was a remote area. He was miles away from the lake. He was definitely dispersed camping out in the middle of nowhere. He did have, what I noticed, he did have a generator running in the background to run his toy hauler. And after I watched this video, I also read some of the comments, and some people were commenting saying that it was the Mogollon Monster. And at this point, I hadn't heard of the Mogollon Monster, so I didn't know what that was. And they were explaining that it's their home, it's their area, and you're making too much noise with that generator, and that's why they were upset. Well, so it starts off with these noises all surrounded by him, and he was a bit freaked out, and the video looked genuine. He did look like he was scared. His dog definitely looked like it was scared. I mean, it was shaking, it wasn't barking, it wasn't whining, you could tell it was nervous. And I believe that animals have some strong senses, and you got to pay attention to those senses. And also, if you also have a strange feeling, you got to pay attention, because it's not just a feeling. I mean, it's something telling you that something's not right. And I say that because I'll get to this point, which I myself should have been paying attention. So as I'm watching this video, now it continues, and he's talking about how he's a bit nervous and is thinking about leaving. And it was his first night. He was planning on staying out there a few days, but he was not comfortable, obviously, but it was too late. He already had his whole camp set up, and it would have taken him hours to break down camp and leave. And it was about to start getting dark, so he decided to stay. Well, the video continues on until about 2:30 in the morning. He wakes up, and again, you could hear the generator running in the background of his video, and he wakes up to rocks being thrown at his trailer. This is at 2:30 in the morning. And as he's recording himself inside the trailer, and he's trying to look out the window, but stuff's being thrown at his trailer. And I think I counted like 6 times of rocks being thrown just within that clip. And he just, again, glanced over, and he's walking around his trailer, and he passes by his dog, and his dog's like shaking. And I'm like, okay, this does look real, right? They're not making any sounds. They're just throwing rocks at his trailer. So then the video continues, and he wakes up in the morning. Obviously, I'm sure he didn't sleep at all, but he's walking around his camp area, and he comes across some rather interesting footprints of something big, right? And it seemed like, again, it didn't seem like it was just one. It looked like it was multiple. Now, I'm sharing this because I came across this, and since then, the past couple years, when I actually felt comfortable talking about this experience to family and friends, I can no longer find that video. That video was taken down. So I don't know what the deal is with that. I don't know what happened to the guy, but I can't find that video anymore. Anyways, so back to my experience in 2019. So I kind of moved on. I, thought, okay, well, this video is kind of interesting, but whatever. I liked the area. I thought Nose Lake would be nice. So I mentioned it to my friend. I said, all right, we packed up, we left, and got to the area off of the rim, and started driving towards Nose Lake. And we started trying to find a remote area that wasn't too populated. It was a weekend. There was people around the lake, and we didn't want to be around people. And so we came across a spot. It looked pretty cool. And every time I come across a camp area, I drive up, I get out, I walk around the camps, try to get a feel for it. And this area was interesting. It was very nice. It was remote. It was some off-road little trail, kind of tight. You know, we got in there, and the entire time we were there, we didn't see anybody else. But what was very interesting is that when we were setting up camp, walked around. I mean, it was really silent. It was really quiet. I thought it was interesting. But after we set up camp and we started making lunch, and I started paying attention more and more, how quiet it was. No sound, absolutely no sound. Like plug your ears, and that quiet. There was no wind. There was no birds, no animals, absolutely no sound. And kind of went on along with the day. After camp was set up, as I mentioned, we had lunch. And we took off. We left my setup there. We left my Jeep there, my trailer. We took his Jeep and we went to Nose Lake, which was a few miles away. And we went fishing. We just spent the rest of the day out there fishing, and it was starting to get dark. Went back to camp, got there, started preparing dinner, got the fire pit going, and we're just hanging out. And I brought it up, and I said, don't you think it's kind of interesting on how quiet it is here? And he says, funny you say that. I was thinking the same thing, but, whatever. So anyway, we dismissed it, kind of moved on along with our night. And I think it was probably about 11 o'clock or so. We called it a night, and, he went to his Jeep. He had his bed set up inside the Jeep. I had my trailer with the rooftop tent. I was sleeping in my rooftop tent. And roughly at about 2:30 in the morning or so, I heard a noise, and it was my friend. I'm like, hey, is that you? He's like, yeah, I'm going to the restroom, whatever. But it, startled me, so woke me up. And he's like, all right, going back to bed once he was done with his business. Tossed and turned for a few minutes, and couldn't go back to sleep. I had my iPad with me, my iPad mini, and I had downloaded some movies. So started watching... just put a movie on, thought maybe it would just put me to sleep. I'm watching this film, and I don't remember the name of the movie, but it was like a medieval times movie. And there was this scene where they're all having this meal around this massive table. And the king's talking, and, they're all talking amongst each other, and I'm starting to kind of nod off. And I hear this noise, and I thought it was part of the movie. And then I heard it again. And I'm like, well, that kind of doesn't go with what I'm watching here. And nobody on the film is reacting to it. So I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, it can't be. So I pause the movie, and I hear the sound again. And this sound was so distinctive that it freaked me out a bit. Because, again, a couple of weeks before that, I had heard the exact same sound on that video. Sounded like a gorilla. Very distinctive. And it was the exact same sound. By this time, it's about 3:15 in the morning. When I originally heard it, it was pretty loud. Again, it sounded like if it was coming from the film. And probably, if I had to guess, it was definitely maybe 50 yards away from where we were camping. And we left a lantern on the table in our campsite. That was it. There was no other light. It was just our camp light. So when I heard the sound, obviously I wasn't going to grab my phone or anything like that. First thing is, I grabbed my pistol. Whatever it was huge. So I'm sure it wouldn't have caused any harm because, as I'm explaining here, whatever it was massive. So it's making these sounds like a gorilla. And first thing I thought, obviously I'm like wide awake now. I'm alert. I'm listening to the sound. And first thing I thought about doing was unlocking my Jeep. And my Jeep at this time is hooked up to my trailer. I'm in my rooftop tent. When you unlock my Jeep, it turns on my headlights. So we're in a heavy wooded area, so it lights up the forest. And when I do that, it starts making these sounds, and it's running through the woods. And it's moving fast away from where we're at because the sound starts sounding further and further. But as it's running through the woods, it's like it's moving through the trees. You hear all this ruckus, and it's just moving. So that's that. As I know that it's realized that it's actually moving away, that's when I grabbed my phone and I did start recording. I'll include these clips to this video. I did have to turn up the volume because, again, grabbing my phone and recording was not the first thing on my mind. It was not the first thing that I grabbed when I heard that sound. But yeah, you can listen to that. Check it out for yourself. It's about 3 a.m. Do you hear that? It sounded like apes a little bit ago. Looks like it was closer, but looks like it's moving out. Yeah, so continuing on. Obviously, I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. That happened. The following morning, wake up, come out. My friend was sound asleep. I asked him if he heard it. He didn't hear anything. He was already knocked out. And he's inside his Jeep, so everything's like enclosed. He couldn't hear anything. He did hear me unlock the Jeep. That's the only thing he heard, but he was just sound asleep. But what was very interesting was that the following morning, it was as if something opened up. I don't know. The sound was there. Wind was blowing, trees were moving, birds, you could hear animals. It was strange. It's almost like a switch was turned on and that same area was like alive again, is how I could best describe it. So we leave that area, and obviously, what's the first thing I started? I started doing some research. Ends up being that this area there's been a lot of sightings of the Arizona's Bigfoot, what's known as the Mogollon Monster. And I mean, there's history and there's all kinds of stuff out there since like the 1800s with the natives. And as early as the 70s, where there were some people that were out there, lumberjacks, and they're chopping wood, and some guy was abducted. That was in the 70s. That was on the news as well because the guy went missing and then showed up. I don't remember if it was years later or months later, but he showed up later, just dazed. And there's, I think, even a movie about this guy. Well, anyways, that's in the 70s. But there's also a story in the 40s, which was actually a group of Boy Scouts that experienced Bigfoot. This hairy monster, which is now known as the Mogollon Monster, describes exactly what anybody who's experienced or seen Bigfoot. I think it was about 12 Boy Scouts that all told the same story. Camp leaders told the same story. That they saw this, in the middle of the night, again, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. They woke up to some sounds and ruckus going on outside their camp, and they looked out of their tents and they saw this big hairy monster man, like 8 foot tall, going through their stuff. And then it walked into the woods and just disappeared. So now I'm a believer, right? I know what I heard. I know from the other stories, and now I'm doing all this research, and I'm finding that what I experienced was most likely this Mogollon Monster that everybody talks about. And so in my search, I came across quite a few videos. I mean, there's a lot of hoax stuff and, kind of stuff that's just far-fetched. However, I came across this one video, which I thought was very interesting because it was the grandson of this man who, he was already retired, but at one point he was in charge of this camp out in Colorado near Estes Park. And in that area, there's also BigFoot sightings. But he himself had told a story to his grandson that he had seen Bigfoot and walked up pretty much right in front of him there at one of the cabins. And so his grandson wanted to interview him. And so I'm listening to this story. And he's talking about his grandpa, speaking highly of him, letting him know he wouldn't make up any stories. He was in the military and just, very respected man in the community, and pretty much would not be making up stories. Anyways, so he shows up and he's interviewing him. And one thing from everything that I've researched, I thought was very interesting, is that he asked his grandpa, he said, with today's technology, why do you think why don't we have clear images? Why don't we have good pictures? Why can't we find him? Why can't we find where he lives and sleeps? We've searched caves. I mean, why can't we find this Bigfoot? And his response was really interesting because of my experience. And he said, I believe that these beings live in different dimensions, and that there's these black holes, these doors that are in the woods that they open up and they close. And that to me made a lot of sense because of my experience. As I mentioned, when we first showed up that day, it was complete dead silence, and I should have paid attention because it did feel weird. I wasn't nervous or scared. It was just weird. It was different, right? But I should have paid attention to my senses because of that experience that night. And again, it's as if a door opened. This being, whatever it was, Bigfoot or not, something was in the woods around the area that we were camping, and it was there. It was watching us. We weren't loud. We weren't making all these noises. We were respectful in the area, just hanging out. We did have some music, but it was very light. We don't blast music in the woods. Just hanging out, just two of us, around the campfire, not making a lot of ruckus. So I'm thinking that this thing had watched us, had been watching us all day and night. And it wasn't until the evening that it started kind of making these noises. And it wasn't aggressive sounds. It was just kind of like letting us know that he was there. But it wasn't until I unlocked my Jeep and I turned on the lights that it took off running. Almost kind of like, I don't know. I don't think I pissed it off or anything like that, whatever it was. But like I said, the following morning, there was complete sound. It was totally normal. It was very, very interesting, that experience of mine. So ever since then, as I mentioned, I'm definitely a believer, and I'm not afraid of being out in the woods. As I mentioned, I know we're not alone. Definitely good stuff come across. Yeah, I mean, we're out there. It's not going to keep me away from the woods. Am I more alert, more cautious, and pay closer attention? Absolutely. Since then, I think a couple years after that, my wife and I were up on the Mogollon Rim. We were just off-roading, kind of exploring. It was midweek, actually, and nobody was up there. I mean, we didn't see anybody on the rim. Sometimes we'll see some Can-Ams or dirt bikes or other Jeeps, but there was nobody up there. And we came across an area, kind of wanted to hang out, find a spot, have our lunch. And I had a feeling as if something was watching us. What I started to do since that experience, I would grab my phone and just go around the forest. Don't walk deep into the woods, but just start recording and just pay attention to footage later, especially in that scenario. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've came across some this stuff just in general, but that experience was very interesting. So thought I would share that because especially in today's world, more and more stuff has been coming out. More UFO sightings, different beings, aliens. I mean, there's a number of stuff. And even with Bigfoot, I mean, without a doubt in my mind, this thing exists. I mean, they're sighted all over the world and everybody has a different name for it. But it's the same thing. And I believe that maybe there's a different they're in a different dimension, and like I said, these doors open and they close, they come in, they come out, and they disappear. And I've came across some other videos where they're flying drones and get their heat signature, and it shows up and it's running through the woods and then it disappears. So yeah. Anyways, take this information however you would like. I just thought I would share that experience. And that is on the Mogollon Rim, which has thousands of acres of beautiful trees and very remote. But yeah, do some research. You'll check it out. You'll see what I'm talking about. Well, hope you guys like this. Hope this is helpful for some of you. Maybe some of you that are believers, could comment or share some of your experiences. That would be awesome. I'd love to hear it. I know I'm not alone because I've came across quite a few stuff, but yeah, hope you guys are doing well, but venture on and yeah, be careful out there.